here we are. Can you see us? Can you hear us? We are on the stunning west coast of Canada, broadcasting from our studio in beautiful Vancouver, BC. Welcome to the podcast that confirms safety does indeed have a personality.
This is the show where we get to know people on a lighter, more personal and fun level who are affiliated with safety, including mental health, leadership, coaching, authors, safety professionals. This is Safety Debris with me, Tammy Steele.
And me, Richard Dulong. Our special guest today is someone who became extremely fascinated in Mongolian history thanks to COVID-19 and Netflix, Marco Polo.
Our guest started his career as a CPA and quickly transitioned into the software implementation side of the industry that worked primarily with engineering and construction companies across North America.
His current capacity is running a successful software company serving clients in industrial industries and has them come from all over the world. Our special guest today is Scott Cuthbert of Edmonton, Alberta. Buongiorno, Scott. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. So glad to be here today.
Yeah, glad to have you. Well, we cracked open the Scott Cuthbert musical vault and found this. This is a band that needs very little of an introduction. This is The Immigrant Song by Led Zeppelin on Safety Debris. Oh, yeah. What a great song that is. The song was written on a return trip from Iceland, where they had just performed. And it's a song that's talking about the Viking conquest of England. And of course, maybe a little subtlety in there about Led Zeppelin making a conquest of Iceland with their music, right? So, yeah, that's music comes out of Scott Cuthbert's personal musical selection, The Immigrant Song, and that's Led Zeppelin right here on Safety Debris. Well, Scott, welcome to the show, and thanks for being with us here. Nice selection of music. I love the tunes you selected here today.
Yeah, no, certainly my pleasure to be here. I'm glad to get the invite and was pleasantly surprised. I'm maybe not as big a music guy as you are, Richard, from the looks of your office there, but I am definitely big music fan. So,
well, I appreciate that. I'm just a music geek. That's all I am. So I have an appreciation for all kinds of genres, but certainly can relate to that music with you.
Why that song, Scott?
Yeah, that's one of our favorite family traditions or trips is heading to the mountains for a ski weekend.
Cool.
And there's of course some northern European heritage in the family, and so I'm a morning person. My family's not so much a morning person. I drag them out of bed, and about halfway up the mountain, I click into Led Zeppelin "Immigrant Song" and get everybody pumped up for a day of skiing. So that's why that song.
That'll do it.
Awesome. I thought you were going to say we go skiing to Iceland.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
I thought the same thing. It's coming on to Iceland, sure.
Yeah.
So Scott, for a little bit for us as well, and for our listeners, tell us a little bit about the company. How did Safeopedia first sort of come about?
Yeah. So I as you mentioned, Richard, in the intro, I had a software company. It was more in the project control side of things, and we worked with industrial construction companies across North America, but one primarily in the energy sector. And we collected a lot of the field data, the labor, equipment, materials, and expenses, and we're always tasked working with the safety department to help with the safety stats, reporting hours of exposure by craft, by area, those sorts of things. And I'd always had a interest in safety and just got more and more interested and involved, and sat on the Construction Owner Association Safety Committee for a couple of years. And certainly not the safety expert that the majority of people on the committee were, but had the technology background. And I kept hearing senior level people and the largest, owners in the world, like BP and Exxon and companies like that, and some of the largest general contractors in North America. And they were saying, I wish there's one place I could go to get the information that I need. What are the best practices? What's the legislation, so that I can be spending less time, behind my desk and more time in the field, making sure people are safe. And so that's really where the idea for Safeopedia came from.
What was it about safety? Because you said I was kind of drawn to it. What was it about safety that you were drawn to? Because you had all this other incredible background.
Yeah, I think for me, anyways, and I think there's value in every job and every organization, but personally, I've always wanted to find a bit of a higher purpose, serve in service of other people, and safety just was a natural draw for me to think about, people getting injured at work and not going home to their families, or not being able to return to the job that they had to, pay the bills, and it was just was important for me, I guess, to get involved in that safety movement and try to make an impact.
I was going to say, I like the sound of that higher purpose and associating that with safety. It sounds pretty impressive for us that are in the industry full time. So maybe you could elaborate a little bit more on what Safeopedia does exactly for your clients.
Yeah, so Safeopedia is a online educational resource. So we've got articles and Q&As and white papers and webinars that are free to anybody who's interested in that educational content. Obviously focused primarily on North America, Canada, US legislation, best practices, and standards. And it really is awareness level content. So and our job is really to help create some education and direct people in to maybe to the course they need, or the consultant that they need, or the company they need to connect with to get more information.
Oh, that's cool. Okay. So people can call you and say, hey, I'm looking for this, and you can sort of direct them. You can either offer it directly to them or direct and say, hey, do this or go here.
Yeah. If anyone's familiar with Malcolm Gladwell and the Tipping Point, I'm a habitual connector. I love connecting people and opportunities, and that's even going back to junior high school. I was the guy floating around between the different social groups, kind of connecting people, and with Safeopedia, we're at a really interesting intersection, because we could talk to the manufacturers like the 3Ms and the Honeywells and the Moldexes, and we talk to the software companies like Intelex and Eco Online, and training companies, and then the safety professionals. And so we're able to make some of those connections that maybe aren't visible, or obvious to other people.
Are you still affiliated with the COAA committee, safety committee? Are you still on there?
No, I'm not. I did did a term there and then rotated off, and I've been thinking about signing up again, but I haven't joined.
Okay. Now, we can hardly move on without finding out a little bit more about your Marco Polo story and how you became infatuated with Mongolian history. But before we find that out, how about we play another one of your selections? Let's dig into that musical vault again. This is a great band and another great song, and I'm sure everyone will appreciate it. This one's called Just Breathe. This is Pearl Jam, and it's on Safety Debris.
Nothing you would take, everything you give. Did I say that I need you? Oh, did I say that I want you? Oh, if I did, I'm a fool, you see. No one knows this more than me. I come cleaner. side.
Oh, yeah. What a great song. Released back in 2009. That is Just Breathe by Pearl Jam. And although they were a big band in the 90s, part of the original grunge crush onto the musical scene, Eddie Vedder, the lead singer, he's one of the last of the vocalists of the great bands of the grunge. I don't know if you are familiar with that, Scott, but there was some talk a couple of years ago when they were all dying, and all the lead singers of these famous bands from the 90s, they were saying, we've got to shrink wrap Eddie Vedder because we don't want to lose him. He's the last of the lot. So scary thought, but he's still pumping it out, and the band still tours. I think they got a new album coming out, so something to look forward to.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
also want to look forward to a little interesting story about you and some of your personal interests. We kind of teased a little bit about your interest in Mongolian history, and it came about obviously when you had a little more time on your hands. So tell us a little bit more about why and how you became involved in that.
Yeah, well, it was I was just trying to think of something that maybe nobody else has talked about on your podcast yet. And when we watched the Marco Polo series on Netflix, of course, it's a great series, really enjoyed it. But at the end of it, I asked that famous question, I wonder how much of this is true.
Yeah.
And that just led on a very long and winding path, and I don't know, dozens of books about Mongolian history and the Marco Polo story, and I just found it. I mean, we could, I'm sure, talk for hours about it, and I won't go on too much. But it's just it's really fascinating history to have a tribal people splintered into small groups. Have a leader that stood up and said, "Hey, we need to band together and conquer the rest of the known world," and they did it with tents and horses, and it's a pretty miraculous history.
So did they talk about at all in the books that you read or the shows that you watched anything about the association with Marco Polo and the pool game?
No.
The swimming pool game?
Oh, the swimming pool game. Yeah, no.
Marco Polo.
Like, where did that come from? I actually thought you were going to say, because I'm like, where did that come from?
You would think it's a secret they would tell, right?
Yeah, you would think so.
I have no idea where that came from, but people play it still.
They do. So before we went on the music break there, Scott, you were talking about sort of one of your passions, or something that you were really good with, was connecting people. And I love that, because I think there's a real skill in people connecting people. Why do you think those connections or connecting people is like so important, or how does connecting people feed, that purpose-driven life for you?
Yeah, well, I think that again, I you always, if something comes natural, it's hard to say that you're particularly good at it. But looking back over my career, and again, I get enjoyment out of meeting people, understanding what they're about, what their skills are, what their expertise are, and love being able to go through the mental Rolodex and pull them out, pull their card out when it's appropriate, and when somebody's in need, or somebody's looking for some additional information or expertise. I'm seldom the one that has the expertise, but I really enjoy the connecting and helping people out. So
you're the glue.
Yeah, and I think that talking to my wife as an example, she says, it doesn't come natural to all people to keep in touch with kind of their network and keep on top of what other people are doing. And I always found that interesting and valuable. I think the Metcalfe's law of network effects, right? The more nodes on the network, the more valuable the network is, and so I enjoy adding value to the network.
And you've made a business out of it.
Yeah, essentially.
I was going to say that we have something in common, because I would like to think that I have a little bit of an ability to keep in contact with people in my network, in my circle. I reach out, and I try not to lose track of, and there's people that span from years gone by that I've tried to reach out to. And my wife, not so successful in that she's very friendly. She's she gets along with everybody and likes to be with people, but the problem with her is that she's not as good at networking or keeping in contact with people. So, but a skill set I think I'm proud to have. In fact, just recently I reconnected with an old friend I used to work with 31 years ago. We hadn't seen each other in 31 years, and we reunited last week in Toronto, and it was just like yesterday. So it was fun. Yeah, I'm sure you can relate to that.
Yeah, that's awesome story.
And is that how, because you have we've seen on social media this conference, the Safety Connect conference that's coming for you. I mean, it's everywhere. Everywhere I turn, I have several of my friends who are speaking at it. Every time I open it up, there's like, and I'm speaking at it. I'm like, another one. And so how did Safety Connect come for you? Is it, first of all, is this your first year doing it, or is it just the first time I've noticed it?
Yeah, this will be our 4th year. So
Okay.
the timing was kind of a little bit of serendipity, I guess, involved. We started talking about it in 2019. I actually attended a virtual conference in 2018. It was for oil and gas industry. It wasn't specific to safety, but I really enjoyed my experience and just a different format to consume content and connect with peers and see speakers, and said, we should really, if we're going to be this online publication and we're going to build community and we're going to drive value, we should really consider doing this virtual conference. And my business partner Jamie will readily admit that he told me it was a dumb idea when I first brought it up. But I won him over eventually, and we started working on it, planning for it in 2019. And then, of course, 2020, COVID, everybody kind of threw up a virtual conference, which was good, in that everybody is familiar with jumping on a Zoom call and getting a microphone and a camera. But there were a few organizations who just kind of did it as a last ditch effort to sort of keep some momentum going, and not everybody had a really great experience with virtual conferences. So we've been fighting a little bit of an uphill battle, letting people know that, hey, this is the platform we're committed to. We do want to make it as an engaging and valuable experience as possible, and people should definitely come and check it out. And we just love it. I mean, as a connector, having the publication was great, but getting to meet and network with people and jump into conversations and ask questions and learn about different companies and different people was really, we wish we could do it every day. It takes about 8 months worth of planning, but it's a lot of fun. So we really, really enjoy the conference.
Well, I'll throw a shameful plug in there. Tanya and I have experience with online hosting and putting on conferences. So
yeah.
Hey, love it. So how many people does it draw? How many people come into the conference?
Yeah, last year we had 2,000 people register for the conference. Wow. We had about 1,000 people signing in live over the 3 days, and it's on demand after the fact. So a lot of folks that couldn't make it, got to go check out the sessions after.
That's impressive. That's impressive. Yeah. And is it held in the Edmonton area?
Well, it's all online. So
it's always online. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you maintain that format. Okay.
Yeah. So speakers, like Tanya said, from all over the world,
right,
are speaking, and attendees from all over the world as well.
That's what I was going to say. If you have 1,000 people virtually, you got to be reaching more than just Canada. You got to be reaching other. And how are you doing that? Reaching, if somebody's listening and saying, well, how do I reach outside of my province or my country? Because our legislation is this, and legislation is different all over the world. How is it that you've got to the point where you can actually reach a global audience?
Yeah, the content on Safeopedia is really intended to be evergreen content. So it's not news, it's not topical content. It is best practices, standards. And so the content is typically applicable. Like I say, we write it for North America, but I don't think there's a country in the world that hasn't visited, somebody from a country in the world has visited Safeopedia to look at the content. So I think that we're in some cases ahead of the curve, and other countries are looking to us for leadership and insight and being a little bit more proactive or progressive than they are currently. and other companies or countries sort of are as far or a little further along, and so the content is still applicable. So
Yeah,
that's
that's smart to be able to do that. Because I always tell people like, well, we have different legislation. And I'm like, well, if I stick my finger in a light socket here in British Columbia, or if I'm in Florida, I'm still going to get electrocuted. Like you don't, the principle is don't put your finger in the light socket.
That's right. So is it safe to assume that your conference is held around the same time every year?
Yeah, it's been October, ever since we started. We moved it a little bit earlier this year. Just we're trying to complement the current conference circuit. We definitely see value in person, and we're not trying to replace in-person conferences.
Mhm.
But we're just trying to augment that, realizing that a lot of safety professionals work for small, medium-sized organizations. They don't have the budget or they don't have the time to go travel to ASSP or NSC, as an example, in the States. So we moved it a little bit earlier this year, just so we didn't conflict with NSC. I think they shuffled their dates around this year, so we shuffled as well with them. So
Oh, that's awesome. That's really smart. And it's true because we are in even a global climate of we don't have time, we don't have the finances that we used to. Like even if we let 2 or 3 people go to a conference, we just don't have the staff to be able to sort of do the work. So we are
right.
seeing more people go on line virtually. In your conference, Scott, over the last 4 years, what are some of the biggest topics that you think people are wanting to hear in safety? Like what are the bigger sessions that people like, that's what I need to listen to?
Yeah, we've been blessed with so many amazing speakers. I think we have 45 or more speakers this year presenting or sharing the stage in a panel format. Safety culture, safety leadership always gets 5-star ratings typically. Lots of great inspirational folks out there to talk about how to create that culture within your organization. Because as you know, I mean, you can have policies and procedures, 500 pages of it, but unless you have that culture of commitment and prioritizing and actually valuing safety, then it's not really going to be effective. So safety culture is always really impactful. We've had sessions on ESG. I think people were interested when the buzz first started, right? Of is this going to impact me as a safety professional? What do I need to be thinking about and considering? And also the diversity inclusion. We've had several sessions, over the years around diversity inclusion, which have got really good reviews, because I think again, safety, in some organizations, I'm more construction industry, so I speak, from my experience, but they don't have, when you're out in the field, you don't have an HR department. You don't just, go talk to HR. You talk to the safety professional, and they kind of become the safety officer. They become the counselor. They become the human resources person, and so they're dealing with mental health challenges and questions. I know you talked to Leslie Montgomery a little while back. One of my new favorite people. When I met her, as far as the connections go, I said, you have to be at our conference. I have to introduce you to everybody that we know, because you have such an important message to share. But so much falls on their plates when they're out in the field that I think diversity, inclusion, mental health, and ESG, those things might not be their primary focus, but everybody needs to have some awareness about those topics and how
Absolutely.
it may impact you.
Yeah, agreed. Just for those people who don't know what ESG is, what is ESG?
Yeah, it's the environmental sustainability discussions that are going on. Yeah, governance that people are, so organizations are wanting to be environmentally friendly and sustainable, and have that governance policy in place. So
and with that whole sustainability piece, I know we've been talking about it for probably 7, 8 years of what that looks like in safety, having, the sustainability, that's the word.
Yeah.
so what does sustainability look like in sort of safety and safety programs besides just the environmental stuff? So, and I'm so glad you have Leslie coming. She spoke at our conference as well. She's wonderful. She spoke at Buildex. We've had her here. We pump her up tremendously. I don't know which one she's doing for you, but I know we're plugging Leslie here, but she does one on what does your porta potty say about the culture?
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
Right? That was one of my favorite speaks messages that she's ever done. I just like, that's amazing.
Yeah, she's so insightful, and I think if we could just clone Leslie, then we could definitely make a huge improvement on safety programs all over the world.
That's right. And what kind of people? So if people are listening, they're like, should I go to this conference or should I?
Well, I was going to ask that, Tanya, but I thought maybe we'd play one more song and
let's do it.
squeeze it in, and then when we do come back, you can ask that question, ask about who the conference appeals to and what kind of industries and roles are really drawn to it. So until we hear from Scott on that, let's listen to one of his selections. This is a great band from Kingston, Ontario. Everybody knows them and loves them. One of Canada's best. This is the Tragically Hip, and New Orleans is sinking on safety debris.
All right. The blue on the street, loose and complete under skies so smoky blue-green. I can't foresee a Dixie did she, so it danced the sidewalk clean. My memory is muddy, what's this river that I'm in? New Orleans is sinking, man, and I don't want to swim.
Oh, you can never get bored of the Tragically Hip. From the album Up to Here, that is, of course, New Orleans is Sinking, but a great song. And thanks for selecting that, Scott. That's a lot of fun to hear those great Canadiana songs on the old, well, I'm going to say on the old radio, but here on Safety Debris.
On the old radio. That's funny. Say that on the old radio, because I was listening to songs. I'm like, I know all these people, and I'm like, oh, this is like a little bit like my time music. And then when we were talking to you before the podcast, you were talking about this shortly after the frenzy of Y2K that you sort of started this business, and I thought, do people listening know what Y2K is?
Are we dating ourselves?
Yeah.
Y2K. Are you an 80s, 90s guy, Scott, or you just like this Led Zeppelin older music?
Yeah, well, definitely 80s, 90s, rock and Zeppelin was a little bit before my time, but of course one of those, arguably one of the greatest bands ever. So
they're timeless. They're timeless, Scott.
Yeah.
You can't age yourself to a band. Nah, come on, don't do that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it would be an argument. I think everybody would agree with that statement.
Yeah. But definitely, 90s, young, moving out, finishing college, first job in the 90s was a pretty impactful time of my life, and the music was pretty influential or important, I guess, for me. And the Hip and Pearl Jam and bands like that were definitely a part of it.
That's nice. So if you were to talk to sort of a young person now that's sort of coming out of college and sort of finding their way, whether it's in safety or business or anything, if you could speak into somebody's life now, what was one of the advice that you would give somebody that you wish you would have had when you were that age?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've had learn by mistakes is I think has been my approach, and
are you going to suggest that to them?
Yeah, well, I think
it's more fun.
Yeah, I read a book, I can't remember. I wish I could off the top of my head, but it talked about the difference between Texans and the rest of people, like and how you always hear about, oh, I won $100 at the casino, or I got 100% return on my investment, right? But nobody like Texans brag about their failures. How much did you lose? How much did you put on the line? And I think it's talked about more and more, but embracing those failures, recognizing that it's, nothing is so it's what you make of it, I guess, and what you learn from it, and how you pick yourself up and move on. So definitely, embrace those mistakes, learn from them. For me, I've always wanted, to have my own business, and I jumped into a few things, feet first without thinking through them. And with Safeopedia, I actually kind of nurtured the idea for a couple of years, and, socialized it with a network of people that I trusted, and really didn't, jump in until we had a good plan. And I was confident in how we move forward with it. So there's some patience and reflection is probably some good advice for people who are coming out. They're anxious to apply what they've learned. They're anxious to get going on their life, and it's okay to take a little bit of time and make sure you're doing the right thing, that your heart's in the right place and your mind's in the right place before you jump in.
Yeah, that's good
advice. Yeah,
that's good advice. Reflection, I love that. Really, what's the difference between somebody who isn't successful or somebody who is successful? Because they both fail, they both fall down. It's just about getting up, doing your reflection, having your heart, following your heart, and just walking forward, just the next step forward. So that's awesome.
Dust yourself off.
Yeah,
that's great.
It's good. So, okay, one last thing about the conference. I know our time is coming to the end here, but if I'm listening to you right now, like, should I come to this conference? Like, is it for me? What's the yes, no, maybe so?
Yeah, well, I mean, we have, like I said, some amazing speakers. We do track the CEUs. So if you're looking for professional development credits, there's only over 2.6 CEUs for attending this conference.
Yeah.
We have great networking opportunities. So we've got a networking lounge and a number of networking activities. So you're definitely going to connect with other safety professionals and walk away with more of those names in your Rolodex. That's also probably dating me.
I'm afraid, yes, it is.
But the one big change I wanted to mention this year was we always survey exhibitors and attendees at the end of the conference and ask them what we can do differently. And we've changed and evolved a little bit every year. But one thing that we kept hearing was, hey, we love this conference. We love getting together. We love connecting. We love the speakers. It's virtual. Why do we have to wait 363 days until the next conference? And so this year we've got a new platform, and it's going to be open for the entire year. And we're going to probably have some mini events throughout the year to bring people back, and keep that momentum, keep those conversations going. I'm notorious for going to conference. You get super pumped up when you see a session and you take 5 pages of notes, and then you go back to the office and you've got 100, or 1,000 emails to catch up on and dozens of fires to put out. And by the time you get through all that, your kind of enthusiasm and passion for what you learned at the conference has subsided. So we want people to come back, watch those sessions as many times as they need, and use them as a benchmark, to actually make improvements within their organizations, not just get fired up for 3 days and then, go back to the grind, so to speak. So,
yeah, that's clever. That's a good idea. Well, we certainly hope that you have enjoyed this episode in meeting Scott Cuthbert here on Safety Debris. Scott, if people want to reach out to you and find out a little bit more about your conference, how can they find you?
Yeah, I'm as Tanya mentioned, I'm splattered all over LinkedIn all the time. So definitely Scott Cuthbert on LinkedIn, probably easy to track me down. And the conference registration page is safetyconnect2023.com.
Excellent. All right. Thanks for that. It's been a pleasure, Scott, and fun to meet you. Thank you for coming into the studio today.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much, Scott. And thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us. And please like us and subscribe to our podcast. If you would like, please send us an email on somebody you might want to have on our show. We would love to hear from you. Please email us your suggestions to safetydebris@gmail.com. Until next time, I am Tanya Steele.
And I'm Richard DeLong. And remember, don't let anyone tell you different. Safety does indeed have a personality. The guests on our show are proof of that. Our tradition, of course, is to close out with a Canadian song, and because we were playing some Tragically Hip earlier, I got the buzz now for that again. I'm wearing a t-shirt that says Tragically Hip, so what can I do but play Tragically Hip again? Here's one of my favorite songs from them, and I'm sure that everyone will enjoy it as well. When the Weight Comes Down, Tragically Hip on Safety Debris.
Had enough.